Hey, what's up, Melvin? How you doing?
Oh, doing well, my friend. Good to jump online and get a chance to talk about all things Soul Step and, maybe something else that's really exciting that we've been talking about offline.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Um, I'm just a musician. I'm not a podcaster or an interviewer, but we connected online thanks to a mutual friend, Lewis Johnson, aka Lonus, aka member of the St. John's in Nashville. He's produced a lot of songs with me. He's produced Take a Bow, How to Break a Heart, Intuition, and One Call Away. And you had reached out to me, and the what you were talking about and what you had reached out about was so special. I was like, okay, this is so cool that we have to sit down and have a conversation and kind of explain it to people is how I feel about it. And you seemed to agree with that, and I'm super grateful that you saw it that way too. So thank you for taking the time to sit down with me and explain what Soul Step Records is. And yeah, if you're watching, thanks for tuning in. We're going to talk today about, I think if you're passionate about music and if you think music is something that is really precious and something that is tactile and something that should be preserved and supported, I think that you're going to get a lot out of our conversation today when you learn more what Melvin is doing and what he's doing for artists. So I just wanted to, yeah, have a conversation with you and let you share your side of the story and explain what Soul Step Records is, and then let down the line we'll get into how our paths kind of meet. So I guess first of all, Melvin, can you share with everybody the moment that vinyl became a passion in your life? When did you start getting passionate about vinyl records?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I know for a lot of people, it starts, like, oh, I was listening to my parents' record collection, stuff like that. And there were records in the house, growing up, of course. But I know, like, that's a very clear moment where and I think this happens for a lot of people, my generation and younger that get into vinyl. There's just a moment where it just hits different, as the
Hmm.
kids say. But
Yeah.
I was at this point in my life, I was in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I was going through a hard breakup. I was a little sad boy. And my buddy Matt Cosper was like, hey, go grab a six pack of Miller High Life, come over to the house. We'll just like hang out. We'll get through this. And I remember going over there to his house, and we opened up a beer, and we were sitting there, and he goes into his closet and he pulls out this milk crate of what looked to be some pretty rough looking records in just terms of the quality condition. And I kind of looked at him kind of funny. I was just like, all right, that's cool, whatever. He pulls out Bob Dylan's Blonde on Blonde. And looking back on it now, it was not like a great copy. A lot of snaps, lots of crackles, lots of pops. And I was sitting there listening to it, and I found myself having a really hard time focusing on what he was talking to me about. And I was tuning in more and more to how the music for the first time really like hit different. And once it got to a couple songs in, and I think it was sooner or later, One of Us Must Know came on, I just kind of looked at him and I was like, yo, I have to fully focus on this. And it was at that point, I remember like in the next couple of days, I had reached out, called my mom and my dad, and I asked if I could politely steal their old record player and speakers, and went and bought Raphael Sadiq's The Way I See It. That was my first ever
Oh,
vinyl purchase. And which is a really like expensive record now because I guess they didn't make a lot of them then, and it's just an in-demand record. And it was my favorite album at the time. And yeah, gosh, I wore that thing out. But yeah, I mean, I remember that moment, and I know everybody's moment hits differently, but it was good old Uncle Bob taking me to school.
that's awesome, man. Yeah, I just to share like my my relationship to it too. That I relate a lot to what you're saying. There's so much to get into with what you just said because there's always the debate about audio quality and the merits or lack thereof of different formats. But I think that there is something about I guess that like it's similar. Like I grew up with my dad's record collection, and I was one of those people who grew up. My dad shared music. The whole reason I do music is basically from my dad's passion for music. He was a guitar player, kind of, but he was more of just a music lover and just shared
Right.
music with me and stuff. And yeah, so a lot of my record collection is my dad's, and then I've started my own, and I'm getting to the point where mine is matching up with his, which is cool, like in terms of quantity. But he was big into like Yes and Frank Zappa and Black Sabbath, and
Nice.
yeah, he had cool taste. He was a cool dude. And
You know what?
do it? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying it's kind of funny. I inherited like soul music from my dad, listening to like Motown and Stax and Philly soul, but I grew up in like this little corner of southwestern Virginia, just steps from the Carter Fold. So like I got this like bluegrass part of my brain, but I also have this like soul music part of my brain, and yeah, it's cool. Like how we take those influences from our parents. And I'm just appreciating your dad's great taste as well.
Yeah, man. Like, I grew up it's funny. I grew up near Charlotte. I grew up in a small town. I grew up on a farm, and my dad was he was just helping his dad on the farm. And he had this like wicked taste. Like, it's crazy. In like Statesville, North Carolina, I don't even know if there was a record store. I don't know where it must have been, I guess. But yeah, I don't know where he got that taste, but he had very, very, looking back on it, man, he was ahead of the curve. He liked all the avant-garde stuff. So that's cool.
I love it.
So, Southwestern Virginia. So what was before founding Soul Step? So I guess you said you inherited the soul music from your dad. What was your journey like? Are you from Southwest Virginia?
Yeah, born and raised, just fully immersed, maybe like 30 minutes away from Bristol, Tennessee, the birthplace of country music, where the Carter family recorded the first ever country songs. The Carter Fold wasn't too far away from where I grew up, and just art in general is just really big deal to us Appalachians. And it's funny to kind of pick up on that and at the same time, get immersed with things I was hearing from my dad, which was a lot of soul music and oldies. But, my uncle, who I spent a lot of time with growing up too, had a lot of classic rock influence. And I feel like all of that like mishmash of different sounds really is like reflective in what I put out these days, because there's some people that follow my label just because of the country and Americana and folk flavored stuff. And there's some people that, are there for like jumping around between all of these different genres. And, it's cool to have that represented there, because, I don't necessarily turn away from anybody or any artist that I think could, has some really great music, because, that just doesn't fit the Soul Step record sound. I don't even know if that's anything that's definable.
Well, I feel like in the packages that you sent me, it feels like, I don't know if this is true, but it feels like you curated to what you maybe think my taste is, which I really appreciate. Yeah. Okay, cool. I was like,
yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh. So like, and we need to like maybe take a few steps back and explain what Soul Steps Records is. But like so I have an example of this on what you got right here. So you write these cool, maybe we'll save that in a sec. We'll save that for a sec. We'll for a sec. So what? So you're taking all these influences from. You fell in love with vinyl in Charlotte, North Carolina. What inspired you to establish Soul Step Records?
Yeah, I was working a day job, and I have a tendency to throw my entire whole being into everything that I do. And my boss pulled me aside and sat me down. He's like, look, son, I think you're a good kid. I think you work really hard, but you like work yourself to the point of exhaustion, and you're just kind of difficult to deal with. So I remember very clearly, he's like, man, you need to get a girlfriend. You need to get a hobby. Like, can you do something other than just work? And I remember going home and being like, what's wrong with that? Like, I'm great. Like, this is good. And yeah, maybe I should take a day off here or there. But you know what? Like, I'm in my early 20s. It's time to grind. But I then decided after some thought, I was like, I'll just start a record label. That's what you do when your boss tells you to get a hobby, is you invent more work for you to do. Yeah. But, I sat down and I was just like, okay, I want to do this. There's records out there that I would love on vinyl that worked. And so I just started to sit down and, I played music back in the day when I was in college. I was good, but definitely not good enough. And, I just thought a little bit about what would have been something that I thought was really cool. What would have been a label or a deal or an opportunity that if it popped up, in my inbox, I would have thought that was the greatest thing ever. And that's really where I kind of rooted it in. I didn't want to take any money from any artist because there's enough hands taking money from artists in the industry. And so I started to think, I was like, okay, well, how do I structure and build something that is sustainable? Because obviously I want to keep putting records out, but at the same time didn't make me feel evil or gross. And so that's where I kind of landed with like, okay, I love colored vinyl. I love all of the different looks and sounds. And yeah, there's probably some people out there that roll their eyes at that and say it's a little gimmicky and whatnot. But at one point it would pull me in. It would make me buy a record that maybe I was on the fence with. And, I continue to kind of build on that and use that as a tool for the Soul Step label as well. But just thought, man, if I could do something really cool, really unique, recoup most of my releases when I sell the limited copies really only gets about 65, 70% of the investment back. And then from there, once I'm kind of protecting the label a little bit, we just split it 50-50, Soul Step and the artists. And just me personally running this label for over 10 years, like I've yet to take a penny out of the label for me personally. Anything that I make just goes back into the label. And it's gotten me to the point where I'm now where I can juggle a lot of different kinds of releases all at once. And wasn't in those early days, man, where, you'd submit a record, you'd wait 6 months, the record would show up, then you would promote it, then you would sell it, and then you could start thinking about that next record. Like having to have a lot of stuff coming out when it's possible and when it's right. And so that process really kind of helped make it happen. And as long as I do this, I want to keep it that way. And if I ever get to the point where, I have to take money from it or it just isn't right financially anymore, well, I might call it a career then. But, just like my record label comps say, there is no finish line. I really hope that that's the case for a really good long time because I don't know, it just brings me a lot of joy to support really strong independent artists and put them on a pedestal and hopefully in maybe my own little tiny way, like support them along their journey. That's where it started. And that's where it kind of remains to this day.
I mean, if you're an artist and you're listening, and you just heard that. I mean, maybe you'll have a similar reaction to what I had when I heard about it, where Melvin, you've mentioned this is something that you've had to have this conversation with artists before. You're thinking that's ridiculous. That's too good to be true. What's the catch? That this guy can't be for real. But as someone who's looked at the numbers with Melvin and he sent me everything over, I can tell you it's what it is. It's what he's saying it is. So it's the way that I'll tell you how I've been kind of pitching it when I'm talking to people about the release. I say, yeah, I'm putting out my next single on a record label, but like it's a real like record label, like they have like it's what the term comes from. It's kind of an old school sort of thing where the label is kind of fronting the pressing for this. So as an artist, I'm super honored and super grateful to be in conversation with you about doing some of my music. And I think one thing that I think is really cool in like the sampler that you sent me. So just for context, Melvin sent me, in addition to being, really gracious to put my music on Soul Step, which is kind of what we're talking about today. He also sent me a sampler of some records from Soul Step, just a whole box of super cool vinyl. And I wanted to pick out like a couple because not only does he pick great music for Soul Step, but he himself seems to pick people who have really great graphic design taste. And this one in particular, this Katie Schechter record, was a favorite with my daughter. We were looking through all the records, and I was like, my daughter's name is Celeste, and I was like, Celeste, which one do you want to play? And when she saw that one, just the girl power vibes of that one, she was like, oh, nothing else is going into consideration. We're playing the Katie Schechter record. And
Good choice. That's a great choice, actually.
oh yeah, it was a killer. We listened to the whole thing front to back. I also really like this. I haven't got a chance to listen to this one yet, but I'm super stoked to listen to this one. The Moonbow, this graphic design, this is giving like 90s. Just there's something so nostalgic about that. I really like that.
Yeah, and I gotta say, man, that album sounds exactly like you would think it would sound like.
Okay. I can't. That one's going on this afternoon for sure. And then one that I've really fallen in love with is this Matt Duncan, I Will Write Your Song. I love the album cover. I'm going to try to get it for both cameras here. The album cover really reminds me of like an Elton John or like a Beatles, like this collage sort of vibe. You don't see that very often nowadays. But there's so much to say about this album. But like, first of all, this is the Wax Mage edition that you've kindly sent me, which we'll touch on Wax Mage in a little bit. But also what's so cool about this is Matt, these are songs that he wrote for people, right? He took commission.
Right.
And you sent me a couple of Matt Duncan records. Now, I feel like I hear Matt Duncan's name everywhere, whether it's like if you're on, if you ever hang around on certain Spotify playlists, like certain indie R&B playlists, I'm sure you've heard Beacon, because seems like it's really popping off on Spotify.
So good.
It's such a good song. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's that I got friends in New York City. If you might recognize that one. But you also pressed one of his albums where he was giving away songs for free. He was just writing like a song a month. And it's so cool. Like us artists, we're constantly making records, but then the thought of them existing in the physical realm is something that has really been speaking to me lately, because it's just like, I think, not to kind of turn the focus back on me, but sort of my purpose and my reasoning for doing music has shifted a lot, especially since having kids. And I think one of the things that I love the most about vinyl records is just the size and just the testament of the document that they're that big. And I kind of joke now, like the reason I make music nowadays is to just to have a document and I'm usually talking about a vinyl record. So I can even say to my kids, like, hey, while you're at school, this is what your insane dad was doing all the time. You know what I mean? So it's so cool that you printed like some of Matt's, it feels like his little pet projects, even in a way, onto LPs. What's your connection to him? He seems like a really special person. I don't know him personally. I just have bumped into his name a lot lately. So yeah.
Oh yeah. He's probably like the biggest artist you've never heard of.
Right.
I mean, Matt does some numbers in the streaming game that like major label artists would just kill for. And he's just a little workshop. He is a workshop. And, I was living in Lexington, Kentucky. It was the early days of Soul Step Records. I was DJing for a little radio station there. And this was after Beacon, but before probably what is his biggest album, Soft Times. And he was playing a one-off single called Summer Song. And I remember hearing it, and it like things were just different after hearing that song. And then that led me to discover his Beacon album. And I was just like, this guy lives here in Lexington, Kentucky, and makes this music for the most part, like kind of all by himself. I mean, he brings other people in to play certain instrumentation, but just about everything you hear on his records is him. And so I remember going to a bunch of his shows at Cosmic Charlie's, Owl's Bar, all the places, if you're from Lexington, Kentucky, you know very well. And eventually, got a point where we got to talk. And, I just kind of shared with him the vision of Soul Step. And I remember we met at Country Boy Brewing, and we got in his Volkswagen Golf, and we sat in the car, and he played me the demos for Soft Times, specifically the song Lone Ranger, which is one of my favorite albums. And on any of my records, it's just like fun little like inside stuff. On the Dead Wax, right outside the center label, I'll always have them inscript some sort of inside joke or some detail about the record. And if you pick up a Soft Times record, it'll say Volkswagen Golf Country Boy Brewing on it, because that was just like a moment. Things kind of changed then. And he's been such a great partner. I think we've done 8 different releases over the years. I think 4 LPs and a bunch of 45s, including, his Everlong cover from the Foo Fighters, which I'm actually running out of. So if you all want that, you should come and pick it up ASAP. But
cool.
He's just slowly, went from an artist that I really, really greatly admire to the point where somebody I call friend. I love when we get a chance to talk. And, he just had his first kid not too long ago. And, his wife and my wife are like sharing, his son's clothing, and my son's now wearing it.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I want to pass that on too. So, he's up in New York City now. And anytime that I'm up there, it's an absolute must for us to get together, have some time to spend together. Just an enigma of a guy. And I think he's somebody in the next 10, 15, 20 years, like another generation's going to pick up on some of these songs. And it's only a matter of time before I think those records are just their musical history at some point. I believe in it to like that level of my soul. And I've just been super honored to be the vinyl conduit for the really great music that he does, and love him to death and always will. That's for sure.
Man, it sounds like you guys are a match made in heaven. I mean, like that's, yeah, I definitely agree. I think and I've had like, there's certain people I've talked to who have also worked with him, which is so funny that our paths have weirdly crossed. I have no connection to him whatsoever. I've never met him, but I've heard similar things. I've heard he's a great guy. So I'm definitely looking forward to diving in. I've loved I Will Write Your Song. I've loved this. I've loved, Beacon and Soft Times and stuff on streaming, but I'm looking forward. I think you gave me Soft Times on the LP, so thank you so much. I'm looking forward to playing that one a lot. So let's move into just kind of vinyl as a concept, because we obviously don't live in the heyday of vinyl anymore, but there's the vinyl resurgence that everyone, you can go to Target and get a handful of vinyl nowadays. So why do you think everybody has their opinion on this, but why do you think vinyl has seen a resurgence in the streaming age? Like, what do you think it is about vinyl that people really are latching onto right now?
Yeah, I think you said it best earlier. I think you talked a little bit about the fact you just pick it up and hold it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's always stuck out to me. I'm someone that, I've been passionate about music for as far back as I can remember. And being able to hold an album that means something to you, I don't know. It just establishes a physical connection to music that I think people of our generation that like the post CD, pre Napster era, like that little pocket of time, it was just, music was just something you saw on a computer screen for the most part, or heard on the radio. And a CD was so small and so flimsy, and the production qualities were always really terrible. They would always fall apart on you, right? And being able to hold a record and follow along, read lyrics, look at liner notes, read who played on certain albums, I think just gives people that different physical connection to the music. And I think that if you care about something that deeply, it's going to connect at a deeper level. And so I tell people all the time, hey, Melvin, I think I want to get into records. What should I do? Well, start by buying the most important album in your life. Yeah. I don't care if it's new or old or something you're proud of, or it's something that's a guilty pleasure. Yeah. If it means something to you, that's the record you buy, and that's the record you put on. And when you listen deeply. Don't try to multitask. Hold that record and listen to that record. And, if you're someone out there that's thinking about getting into vinyl, that's my advice for sure. There's no going back after it. And apologies to your wallet, because it can be an expensive hobby.
Yeah, for sure.
But, to me, music's not a non-essential product. It's an essential one in someone's life. And when you discover that, it just kind of all makes sense from there.
I totally agree. I mean, I think the audio quality, it's funny, like as a musician, I do like it's weird. I don't have a day job. I have a night job. And like the way I support myself currently is I play a lot of background music. So I play at a gig last night at a brewery, played at a restaurant, weddings, all the general like musician sort of gig hustling. That's how I support myself right now. And I'm really lucky in Atlanta. I've got like a decent calendar set up, but the overwhelming majority of what I do is background. And I'm super grateful for that opportunity, but I do sometimes have the thought we're surrounded by music all the time. There's one of the hills that I absolutely will die on. One of the things that I just will not get on board with in the modern era is commercials at gas pumps. I know that sounds super random and super off topic. It is such a thing from hell. Like I hate it so passionately because I grew up in the country, and it used to be like when I first started driving, I had so many song ideas, like waiting at the gas pump in those moments of silence that like, had to get home before 9 p.m. It's like 8:45 and you're like filling up your gas tank. I know that's like a very personal, it's not everybody's experience, but that was my experience growing up in the country. You had to drive everywhere. And my point of that is that we're kind of invaded by sound always nowadays. It's on our phone. It's in the supermarket. You go from one song to the next all the time. And I think it's created this oversaturation of music for sure. Another like little bone that I had to pick was this weekend I went to a dance recital, and they had all of the program. They had like the list of dancers and everything, and they had all the names of the songs, and they didn't list the artist names. And I was just like,
no.
that's awful. That's terrible. Like we're all here. There would be no dancing without the music. We don't even have the artist name. And not to like extrapolate too much information from that. I'm sure whoever designed the program was just really stressed. But like, it does sort of speak to this, this sort of like lack of appreciation in a certain way. Again, not to be over dramatic, but there is a sort of a lack of we're oversaturated with music. And what I love about vinyl, beyond the sound quality, is you put that needle down, and it's a lot of effort to switch to the next song. It's a lot of effort to change. You're not doing that thing where you're listening to 30 seconds of a song and then you're neurodivergent or ADHD sort of processing kicks in and you want to skip to another song. You're kind of locked in with that experience. And I think that's really special. And I'm lucky I have a record player. This is all perfect timing because I just got some nice tower speakers that I actually inherited from a friend. And I remember the first time I put on a Lemon Twigs album and I sat in between, which is already, like that's awesome, right?
Say less.
Yeah, I sat in between those two tower speakers and I actually teared up, which I'm not a weepy guy. I find it really hard to cry. But I was like, wow, this is how this music's fun again. This is how music's supposed to feel, right? And so I think it puts music at the centerpiece, which for I think our parents' generation was maybe more so the case.
Right.
And I love that. So what would be your advice for someone? So a lot of people don't have record players anymore, right? That's the thing.
Right.
Like, I think people bought CDs, and I think a lot of people threw away their record player. I think in the 80s and 90s, there was a lot of tragic trashing of records and record players. But, nonetheless, like no one has record players anymore, or very few people, right? What would be your any tips for first-time buyers? Like just someone who's really on a budget, how would you help them get into this?
Oh yeah, that's awesome. I get that question a lot from friends and people in the know because I'm glad to be that resource there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, you could look at this hobby as you just go and look at things, and it can be kind of daunting. All these different needles, all these different kinds of turntables, and sometimes us old heads can be a little guarded, like, no, why would you get one with Bluetooth? Because Bluetooth, the sound isn't quite as great. Like, look, however you get into it, to me, is good.
100%.
However you want to experience it is good.
Yeah.
I started on probably a $70 Audio Technica turntable with $50 speakers. It wasn't great. And, it certainly wouldn't be what I'd want now. But at the time, man, that was the gateway. That was the highway that I was on. And I had a lot of fond memories with that little record player before it finally, kicked the bucket. And, I could get to a spot where I could get a little bit of a nicer one. But I know a lot of record shops now, they have these little starter packs, I've got great homies at Coal Mine Records and Plaid Room Records up in Ohio, where I spent a lot of time. And I know they would always have on deck, just a $150 speaker and turntable combo, and, buy these things from your local record stores. You don't necessarily have to go to a Target or a Walmart or Amazon. Yes. I mean, if that's what you got to do, hey, by all means, do you. But if you've got that ability, even if it costs a couple extra bones, go to your local record store. They're not going to judge you. They're going to steer you in the right path, and you'll be able to go home and start to really experience music and maybe have a moment like you had, right? I think you're 100% right, man. Like, I know a lot of artists and labels, don't necessarily have the best feelings towards, the streaming options that are out there now, but I think that helps to kind of contribute to some of that disposable feeling.
Yeah.
Artists aren't about making the best 40 minutes that they can make, because that's all a record can hold. It's about, well, how many more songs can we put on there so that way it could more streams and more money. And so the quality can sometimes kind of lack in that regard. And so, I think that's in my opinion, the best way to experience music. And like I said earlier, especially the music that you love, just to sit with it, just be there with it. And you're going to hear things you maybe haven't heard before, and you're going to be hit maybe a little bit more emotionally than you ever had before, because the point of the art that these artists create is to elicit emotion, feeling. And when you get a chance to really give it your full undivided attention, kind of can surprise you what can come up and come out, and just deepen that relationship with the music.
Couldn't agree more. I think the one thing I'll say on that point is I think that there's a fullness to the way vinyl fills the room. I know some CDs can be really great too. CD quality is definitely nothing to snuff at, but there's when I put a record on streaming, I can have it pretty loud downstairs and then not really hear it upstairs. And there's something about the tone arm amplifying, and I'm sure some geek who really knows what they're talking about could totally call BS on this. This is just my feeling towards it. There's something about the way the tone arm is essentially a microphone picking up the grooves. I personally feel like it fills up a space in a way that
100%.
Then you feel that way too? Okay.
I mean, with digital, it's all 0, 1, 0, 0, 1. It's flat.
Right.
And, and look, it can be a little different, all depending on how the music is mastered. And yeah, you're right. I could nerd out with you on that. But, when it's truly, truly, truly analog, you get those big sound waves. And to me, that's what I think you're describing. And so you get a record that's mastered right and recorded right and mastered right, man, you're totally right. It can make such a difference in the fill of the room that you feel. You're 100% correct on that, man.
Ah, cool. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about our collaboration. So I'm extremely, extremely honored to be releasing my next single exclusively with Soul Step Records on vinyl. So what we're gonna be doing is we are going to press a 45 7-inch version, and I don't have a pressing of this is not my actual record. This is someone else's, but we are going to be pressing a 7-inch version of Intuition, which is my previous single that came out at the end of 2024, and my upcoming single, One Call Away. So one side will have Intuition, one side will have One Call Away, and I'm just incredibly stoked. And so one thing that you need to know as a listener, just really quick, if you are getting into vinyl, and this is something that I don't have, that I'm going to go down to Criminal Records in Atlanta, hopefully today, and buy. You need a 45 RPM adapter. So most records have a tiny little needle. Don't let any of this vinyl stuff scare you. It's not that scary. But this is one little thing that you need. It's like a piece of plastic. It's 1.5 inches. And you're going to need that to play my singles, Intuition and One Call Away, that I'm really, really stoked to put out on Soul Step. And I'm super grateful for Melvin for agreeing to partner with me on this. And the records will be available starting May 31st, right? May 31st.
That's right.
At 1 p.m., you'll be able to head over to Soul Step Records website. And so I want to make sure that I get this right. So I got it. Here's how we'll talk about this. So we're going to print a limited number of these singles. We're printing 300 in total. Got it. You've got it. Nice. Okay, so it will come off in a 7-inch package like this. And so
So we've actually got 100 that will be of the seafoam green.
sick.
And then, as you're mentioning, my friends up at the record plant that I do business with will have 25 of what's called wax mage, which are essentially really, really insane handmade variants that people get pretty excited for in the past. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I'll include some B-roll with some better images of those, but I am incredibly stoked to have some Wax Mage variants. So I think there's going to be 25 of those.
That's right.
So it's pretty exclusive. So um, if you want a Wax Mage variant copy of Intuition and One Call Away, you need to become a subscriber
That's right.
for Soul Step Records. And I will post some links of how you can do that. And you could sign up today, right? Assuming this is going to come out a few days before May 31st, you could sign up today and become a subscriber at Soul Step Records and reserve your copy. Now, if you're not a subscriber, you can still purchase Intuition and One Call Away, but it will just be nothing wrong with it. It'll still sound just the same, but it'll be the standard black, right?
Right.
And the
Totally.
and the seafoam. So is this how it works? It's going to be the 25 Wax Mage, then the seafoam for subscribers.
Yeah, we'll actually put all of the limited edition up at the same time.
Okay.
And I appreciate you sharing this just because we want to make sure that everybody knows how to get there,
Yeah.
the right way to do it. And, the whole reason that we started a subscribers club in the past is because we just had people who would buy these really cool, good looking records. And look, I want you to listen to the music, right? I don't
Yeah.
want it to just be something that people would go and buy it for, however much it cost, and then immediately have it on eBay or Discogs
Right.
for, twice, triple the price. This kind of keeps me, I'm able to guard it a little bit more. And really, look, with this, it's totally free and there's zero commitment. You can sign up and never buy a record from me, but you'll always get those emails and reminders of A, when our releases are coming out, B, the password protected website where you can get these records when they're brand new and when they're really limited. And it's just a great way to go. Like, we don't keep any of your credit card information. I want none of that noise. I just want to make it really easy for the right people to get those records that are going to love them, going to cherish them, and is going to really do what they're intended to be listened to.
So it's almost like tell me if this is a good way to think about it. It's almost like you're subscribing to a YouTube channel. Like when you say subscription,
Yeah.
it's not a subscription that's going to come on your credit card every month. It's not. They're not taking your credit card info. It's you're subscribing to the access of your catalog's releases, and you're getting that password to be able to go in and buy these limited editions of the records.
Yeah,
Is
100%.
that a good way to look at it?
Yeah. It's just a
Okay.
it's just a great way for us to be able to like directly communicate as well. And it's been so cool over the years, Des, where, somebody might have joined because they wanted one of those Matt Duncan records because they're a big fan of Matt Duncan, and the hope is like don't unsubscribe, stick with us because you might find a couple of artists, maybe multiple artists that you fall in love with. And man, nothing makes me happier when I see on an online forum or somewhere out in the world where I see a person reach out to an artist and say, "I discovered you through Soul Step." Like that's it for me, man. Like I could do a cartwheel down the street every time I see something like that.
That's
And
awesome.
that's the point and the purpose, right? Support the artist that you love. Stick around for the next artist that you're probably going to love as well. I might be a little biased, but I think I got a pretty decent ear here. And I think, regardless of what genre it is or what type of music you're into, you're going to find an artist that deserves that attention from you. And you know that it's you're supporting an independent business, you're supporting an independent artist, and I think it's just good vibes all around. So it's totally free. You mentioned it, soulsteprecords.com. There's a big old button to subscribe there, so click on that, and we'll be in touch, as they say on the TV. Operators are standing by.
Well, man, I'm just once again like incredibly honored. I've never had a color. Well, that's actually I've done one white version of one of my albums before, but I've never had something like the Wax Mage variant. Oh, and the seafoam green with the red just looks awesome.
So good.
The seafoam green with the red, and then it's you you have great the visual aesthetics that you've got. They're just you're killing it, man. You're killing it.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and
Yeah.
yeah, in these Waxmates copies we're speaking of, I've looked at every single one. Every single one. Not only are each one of them different, both sides of the record are different.
Oh
So,
wow.
like on these standard, like, oh, these standard records, but no, they're great too. Like,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
got your seafoam green, but when you get a chance to see these that were produced for this particular 45, both sides you will find have completely different patterns, completely different colors. It's magic in vinyl form. That's the only way that I can describe it. And they move quick. They
Okay.
move quick. And when I say quick, man, it's like a minute or less.
Oh really?
So if you want to be one of those individuals that are able to snatch one of these, follow the instructions that you'll be sent if you're signed up as a subscriber. Because if you're not there, locked in, ready to go, right at 1 o'clock Eastern when these records go on sale, you'll probably miss it. So be
Wow.
be prepared and get involved. Like throw some comments on the social media because there's a lot of people that follow that really love this. And instead of a community that kind of gatekeeps that kind of stuff all for themselves, they love to share like, well, here's what I do to break through, and this is my best tip. And it's really cool to kind of see collectors supporting, you know, good music.
Ah, I just love it. I love your vision. I love how much you appreciate music, and it's very inspiring to me. It makes me wanna, yeah. It feels validating. It makes me want to make music because it feels like it's worth something in a way, and
Yeah.
that's just incredible. So thank you so much for working with me. Thank you for printing Intuition One Call Away. One Call Away will eventually be out on streaming, but right now we're gonna announce the exclusive um, vinyl release date. People who've been to shows, they've been hearing One Call Away. One Call Away has been in the set list for at least a year and a half. People know that tune, and I know a couple of people have asked when it's coming out. So this is your chance to get it. Um, if you're not hooked on vinyl yet, we hope to be the arbiters of your incoming. Hopefully, something that really augments your life, something that we think you should get into, and is maybe worth your time, and could maybe if you're in a rut with music, maybe this could refocus music at the center of your life, and if it was previously, and yeah, but um, follow Soul Step Records on social media. I'll post all the links that I can in the description, and follow. Yeah, thank you so much, Melvin.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us,
Yeah, I'm
joining us.
so
It's joining me in my.
Oh man, I'm pleased to be connected to you now. You mentioned kind of earlier there's like all of this like interconnected fiber where we've kind of been in the same universe but never like being able to get close to each other. But the honor's all mine. Like the music's on wax because the music deserves to be on wax. It's that good. And I love that your idea to for us to have almost like I'm going to call it a vinyl exclusive window to be able to hear one call away. And, we talked about it earlier, like being able to just really sit and listen to it, no distractions, hearing the depth, the detail, and the production, how it was put together. I mean, you mentioned if there's somebody out there that follows you and they've heard that song live and they asked you that question, then you deserve it to yourself to pick up this vinyl when it comes out and listen to it that way. Promise you. It's so good. The production's great. The arranging is great. My God, it was just like the first time I heard Intuition and I just went, oh God, please don't let this be on vinyl already because I would die to have this on the label. So, the honor goes both ways, my friend. And thank you for doing what you do and, you know, seeing that great partnership in someone like me and this label and what we do. Because, I think it's a good match. And, hopefully this goes really well. And maybe it opens up the opportunity for us to do more in the future because, I think there's some great stuff there. I think you got a pretty damn good catalog.
Thank you, man. The last thing I'll say before we sign off is I think I'm really grateful for just even for this conversation because I think like I'm a musician, so my social media algorithm is full of other musicians, and it can feel really bleak. There's a lot of negative press about
Yeah.
the state of the industry and the way things and touring and merch cuts and the whole thing. It can feel really bleak, but just talking to you and seeing your enthusiasm for this and what you do is a really nice breath of positivity and a breath of fresh air, and I'm all about that. And thanks for providing that for artists. It's sincerely really really appreciated.
Yeah, it's truly, man. It's the pleasure of my life, and it's just a more grown up way of what I would do when I was a young, and like you would go home and you would make like these burn CD mixtapes and pass them out to people because you just knew all these songs you wanted other people to know. So this is just kind of like my grown up way of keeping that going and passing along really good music. So I hope we can do it for a really long time. So, please share the good news about Soul Step. This is the operation right here. And so, it takes a lot to make it happen around, a day job and, family obligations. But, being able to do that is everything to me. And I hope that we can continue to maybe be a label like in 20 years, Desmond. Like I would like for someone to go back and do like this archival release, like, oh man, this label was kind of disrupting the industry and it's actually pretty damn good music too. Like I hope one day to get our flowers in that way. But just hearing those
Oh
kind
man,
words from you, man, that's everything to me.
maybe 20 years from now they'll have like musicians will be like looking for that soul step sound and they'll like sample packs and they're
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, how did they wow, how did Matt Duncan get his like kick, all that stuff that Melvin was curating on the, that's how this stuff goes. So
Yeah, it's all good. It's really cool and just super glad to be able to sit and have this conversation with you and hopefully y'all dig it and come and pick up this 45 when we release it here at the end of the month. I'm pretty pumped about it.